if you asked me to pick one method that was the most consistent across any commercial in the country, then I think I would have to pick fishing hard pellets. So that is exactly what we're going to detail about in this match masterclass. Right then, so hard pellet fishing, as we said, I think personally for me, it's got to be one of the most consistent ways of catching fish. In fact, I would say probably any match that I fish, I have this method set up and it's probably something I start on an awful lot of the time. Don't get me wrong, at certain times of day, of the year, like there is other methods that are perhaps really bagging methods, let's say like cast to shallow, stuff like that, but this is definitely the most consistent and I want to talk you through how I do it. So I'm going to go straight into the fishing and we're going to get straight into it. We're going to talk you through rigs and that later, but what I'm doing just here is I'm dropping about 10 or 15 pellets in a little pot and we're going to go straight out into it. So no messing around this match masterclass. Now you will see completely dry net. We have not fished or started the session. This is literally my first cast, but the best thing about hard pellets is how quick you can get a reaction. So I've gone out to my mark and I'm just going to tap those pellets in, make a little bit of a noise because at the moment they don't know that there's any bait there. Now it's quite deep here and we're fishing on a slope, so I'm just going to swing past and I'm going to now lower my rig over the top of it. Now what we're hoping for, I would say within a couple of minutes, is some sort of reaction. So that's all straightened out nicely and we're going to go in. But it's the tapping of those pellets that is really attractive to these commercial fish. Now the best thing about this slope is my pellet is going to sink my bristle, so all I need to do is keep just slowly pulling my float back until we know we're sitting perfectly on that shelf. So that is now, wow, set and primed. That had only just got down there, but that is how quick you can get a reaction on with pellets. Like I said, it was just bouncing down that slope, the pellet, but it's another really good way of making sure that you're definitely fishing at the right depth. And we'll come into rigs and baits because there's things you can do with it, but I really want to show you just how impactful this can actually be. And that, well, to be honest, I didn't expect it to start that well. Just a little carp to start with, but it is a start. And how quick was that for a reaction into the pellets? And what you will notice is one thing I didn't do is I didn't throw any pellets out once I hooked it. I probably will do as we develop into the session, but this is how I personally fish with hard pellets. So on my side tray, I've got 6 and 4 mils. There is a little bit of an edge and a knack that I make them better, which like I said we will come into, but I'm just banding 6 mil, and basically we're going to repeat that process. To start with, what I don't want to do is feed far too much bait and attract those fish up in the water. This is well, let's say this is definitely better in the warmer months, this method, but I actually find it better when it's not ridiculously hot, because obviously the fish do tend to come up in the water, and if they're coming up in the water, basically you're not going to catch them like this. So same again, we're just going to make a bit of noise this time again, but once those fish are there, I will change that in the fact that I probably won't make any noise. I'll sneak the pellets in because, like I said, I don't want to attract them to come up in the water. So hopefully we're going to lower that in and we're sitting perfect this time. It's not gone down the slope. It's a really lovely way of fishing on a slope, and that pellet sort of creates an anchor point so you know exactly where you're fishing. But they're now going to be sinking down nice. Let's see if we can get another reaction. Oh, a little miss bite that time. And if we are getting nice clean bites like this, I won't change too much. The only thing I will do, and there's another one, the only thing I would do is, because there's clearly quite a few fish there, what I might start doing maybe next time, as soon as I hook one, I might throw 4 or 5 pellets in just to try and keep that many carp into your swim. Now, we're quite lucky. There's nobody here today. There's people on the other lake, but this lake we've got to ourselves. So we're expecting the fishing to be pretty good, and that's as good as it comes really. We've had one missed bite and another little carp. They go a lot bigger than this in here. So let's see if we can go out and get another one. But yeah, as I said, this is why I wanted to do this video in this way, just get straight into it, into the fishing, because what you're watching now is exactly how it's happened. I haven't done any prep, no prime of the swim, no fishing to get it ready. So to think that there's fish there, like, this is a very instant attraction method. So what we'll do is we'll just repeat that again, but this time what I'm not going to do, because obviously we just rattled in those 2 lots of pellets, I'm almost going to sneak them in this time, because the fish know that there's bait there now, because we've got 2 bites, so a lot lower to the water, and I'm just going to lower them in, and then we're going to pop the rig over the top like that. Again, it's quite deep, so we're taking a while to fish, but the reason for sneaking them in is, like I said, I basically don't want to create fish coming off bottom. I want to keep them where they are. So we're just down that slope, so we'll keep inching back. We've had 1 missed bite at the moment, and that's it. So at the moment it's very good. It's coming up that slope again. If you get your rig right, it's perfect, because there we go. Now we know everything is super tight. That's the importance of keeping it super tight, because there's so many fish there. What I'm going to do in this one is I'm literally going to get 4 or 5 pellets, and I'm just going to pop them where we're fishing. So I'm now not making any noise when I go in with my pot, but I'm making a tiny bit of noise there when I've hooked one, and I think you can get away with it once you've hooked one, because there's a little bit of a commotion. So just 4 or 5 pellets straight away once you hook it, I think you can get away with. That's almost sneaking them in, because they're spooked ever so slightly. Sneak your pellets in, and then don't make too much noise. Now, I pretty much, if the bites keep coming like they are, I wouldn't rattle them in with my pot anymore, because like I said, all that rattle does is let them know that there's bait there. Getting slightly bigger, look. But once they know the bait's there, it's all about nailing them to where you want to be. Should we see if we can catch one more quickly in this piece? So let's get that one in the nets. But I don't know how long I've been talking to you or fishing, but I don't think we've waited much longer than 20-30 seconds for a bite, and that is why I started off the session with saying I think this is the most impactful way of fishing. Let's face it, fish love pellets, all fish love pellets, and on this line you can catch a bit of everything really. It's not just a carp method. I'd be surprised today if we didn't catch something else, maybe a tench, or there's a few eyed in here. And I have got some different size baits, which, like I said, we're going to come on to a bait section at the moment. So let's just repeat it again, see if we can catch one more. We're going to sneak them in again, because I think that they know those pellets are there. And then we're going to lower the rig over the top of it, swinging it slightly out, so you'd expect the float to dip under straight away. We'll have to lift it back up the shelf, and then hopefully everything is really tight. The best thing about, that's perfect. So my rig is really tight, so we missed the bite there, and that's the only thing that you would have to do in this method, is working out why you're missing bites. That's just down the slope. So because I threw a few pellets in that last session, or that last one I hooked, 3 missed bites in a row. You see already that may have made a difference, because I only missed 1 bite until I threw a few pellets, and I've now just missed 2 or 3 in a row. So definitely this time what I won't do is throw pellets when I hook a fish, because I want to make sure they stay right on the bottom. So let's just wait until we get it perfectly tight up on that slope, which we are now. There we go, that's perfect. So we are all sitting tight with the rig, and hopefully, see, I think what has happened is just making a little bit of noise when I threw them in has created a little bit of movement with the fish, but we have managed to hook one. So this time I am not going to feed on top of where I am. I'm just going to continue the sneaking in of the pellets. It might not have been that, you know, I might go out next cast. Actually, I'll do it. We'll carry on fishing and talking to you, because the whole thing about this method is the way that you understand and read your swim. Obviously, if you're not getting bites, such an important thing is to make a bit of noise. Let them know that there's pellets going in. You saw how quick that first bite came. That was because I made a little bit of noise. But we don't need to make that noise now, and I think because I threw those pellets, it's definitely what has made a bit of a difference. There we go. We're starting to very, very quickly. Calm down. Hey, this is the liveliest carp I've ever caught. Very, very quickly, we're starting to put a picture together of what's happening. So, should we hold it up? Let's have a little look for you. Not in a rush today. We're not in a match. Wicked little carp and perfect little weight builders. So, you know, that's sort of £1.5, something like that. The other one I caught was a little bit bigger, but yeah, a perfect size fish to catch in a match. Let's pop that in there, and I will see if we can just do that again, but without feeding. So this time I didn't throw them when I hooked the fish. So I would hope that they know that there's bait there, but they're definitely staying on the bottom to find it. So let's go in again, and literally in this pot, I'm probably putting, how many, 1, 2, 3, I reckon 15, 10 or 15 pellets. That is it. You don't need to feed a lot. So it's actually a really cheap way of fishing. Let's go back out again. You have got to be super accurate. So I've got a mark on the far side, actually where I'm sitting. I don't know if you can see it. There's something on the far side. There's a little sign that says Canal Peg 24. That is where I'm aiming from, where I'm sitting. So I'm going to sneak those pellets in. And now I would hope, because I haven't made too much noise, we might not miss as many bites this time. I might be wrong. So they always tend to like to make you look a little bit silly when you're on camera. But already we've not gone in and got an instant bite. So let's hope we can. There, bang. See the difference? That is what you've got to do the whole way through your session. You've got to read what's going on. Do I need to make noise? Do I need to fish more bait? Do I need to fish less bait? Obviously, if I wasn't catching as many bites as this or as many fish as this, I wouldn't be feeding as regularly. But on the flip side, sometimes they like a bit of noise. So as soon as you hook one, you might want to give them 5 or 6 pellets like I did. But you can only do that if you are keeping the fish feeding how you want them to feed. You have to make them feed the way that you want to catch them. Obviously, if you wanted to come shallow and fish up in the water, then you would be feeding all the while. But this, I'm trying to keep them on the bottom. Here we go, look, another wicked fit, and I'm trying to catch them exactly where I want to catch them. So, can't remember how many fish that is now, but that's been fishing for a few minutes and it has been pretty effective. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to catch a few more, and then we will take a look at the rigs and obviously the baits, because there is a few things that's very, very important to make this style of fishing as good as you've just seen it. As expected, that was a great little section of catching fish, but let's get a bit more technical, talk about the rig, and importantly, how we're plumbing it up and stuff like that, because at that start there, you might have seen my float went under a few times with my hook bait pulling my float under, and that's very important in the way that you do that. So let's go through the rig first. So we've got orange slick. Now that's perfect for what's in here, carp from literally 8 ounces to 5 or 6 pound. That is what I would use, but you're gonna have to change your elastic to whatever size of fish you're trying to catch. Now float wise, I've got a stubby slim in 0.4 gram. Nice thick bristle, fairly positive, and we've got a little trimming shot just below it, because you do need to shot your float perfectly, which will become a little bit more apparent when I talk to you about when the plumbing up section. Now it's 014 mainline, and my shotting pattern is number 9s in a tapered bulk. So as we're getting towards the hook section, we're tapering out to make a slower fall. So the bolt gets it down, but you can see the bottom shots here is probably 2 inches apart, then we go to 1.5 inches, probably 1 inch, 1/2 inch, maybe 1/4 inch. So that basically is pretty much the shotting pan that I use for most of my fishing. I've got an 014 hook link, which is also 4 inch, and I've got a bait band on there, a little hair rig. The band's in a loop, makes a little bit more movement with your hook bait, and a size 14 hook. So actually, in fairness, you've probably seen me use this rig on more match masterclass because it's very, very good. You know, if I'm fishing on the bottom, this is pretty much the setup that I use. But what I want to show you is about how you plumb it up and where I'm fishing, because what I love about these episodes of match masterclass is we have a huge variety of angler watching them. So from people who have been fishing for ages, some people not fishing as much. So this section is super, super important. So we're fishing on a slope here. So if I go slightly past my spot, what you'll see is that plumbs up to literally almost taking my float under. So that would be not where I'm fishing. Now, if I come back a few inches to where I'm fishing, how I'm plumbing up is to the bottom of the body of my float. There you go, you can see it just there. So I've got the float bristle, the body of the float, that is where I'm fishing. If I come a little bit closer again, you'll see I've probably got, there you go, half a float length out. So you can see it's a gradual slope. Where I want to be putting my hook bait, super important, is there, where it's to the bottom of the body of my float. Now, I hope this plane isn't going to cause you too many issues. I hope you can hear me. Decided to do a party above us, but a little bit further, you can see there, almost taking my float under. So with that in mind, let me put a pellet on and go out there. I'm pretty sure that that plumbing up won't make a difference. What I'll do is I'll put a pellet on and show you why it's so important to plumb up accurately, especially when you're fishing on a little slope. It is a wicked place to fish though, because you're going to see in a moment what happens. Now, when you're shotting your float, you need to make sure it's super dotted down. You just want a couple of mils showing, because what's really important is that 6mm pellet needs to affect your bristle. So you need to be able to see if you're not quite fishing where you need to be fishing. So we're going to sneak these pellets in. I've not wanted to catch or attract too many fish, because it's very rare you'll hear me say that. But so when I'm fishing a slope that's going away from me, we're always flicking the rig past it. Now, if I hold it just past our spot, it's fairly deep here, so that shot gets it down. What you should see here is my float will sit super low to water, maybe just ticked under the water. You can see it there. If I pull it back, it's just underneath. So we know that that pellet is not quite on that shelf. If I come back a few inches and hold it nice and tight, what we should have, if that pellet makes the perfect contact to the shelf, which you can see there, is just a few mil of float sticking out of the water. And what that means is my rig is now super, super tight. So any indication like that, bang, you can see your bites. Your bites are magnified like literally tenfold. What you don't want is to be fishing either too far up the shelf towards you, so you've got lots of slack line, but you also don't want to be fishing past it, so your bait's not quite touching the bottom. You still will catch fish on both of those ways, but if you can get it absolutely perfect and you can get your rig nice and tight, then your bites are super magnified and you can see absolutely everything. So this one's very angry. This plane's really annoying me. I don't know why he's decided that he wants to just fly above us while we're trying to make a fishing video. Let's see if we can get this one. Another nice fish. There's a lot of small fish in here, but there's also the fish of this size sort of push them out. And when you start catching fish like this, that's when you can do really big weights. You know, quite regularly here, you need to be catching 200 pounds to win a match. There we go. There's one in. Especially with us fishing today, you'd expect them. Now this is going to show you even better. That fish there is hooked in the top lip. If you're hooking fish in the top lip pretty much all of the time, that means your presentation is superb. So there's one to remember. If you're slightly new into fishing, you're trying to hook the fish in the middle of the top lip, that is what we call the sweet zone. So I'm going to try and show you that once more. We're going to slip a pellet on, And we're going to fill that pot up. Again, I've not thrown any pellets apart from that once, which we trialed and didn't like. I've carried on sneaking them in because I don't want to attract fish. Well, I want to attract fish, but I don't want to attract too many fish into my peg. So let's show you once more, because it is very, very important. The two things that are super important is reading your peg, how you're feeding it, which we touched on earlier, and the other way is exactly where you're fishing it. So let's purposely go too far. Let's that swing in, and what you should see, I don't know if you pick up quite as well on camera, but my float is going to be super, super low. Once it's all connected, there we go, it's almost under the water. So I know that we're not quite sitting in the perfect spot. Now we're going to come back a few inches. You might have to do it a couple of times, you know, this might also go under. No, that's sitting perfectly. So once you've, oh, I missed a bite. Oh no, I haven't. I've hooked one right up in the water, and that is not what you want. This is going to be foul hooked for sure, and that just emphasises even more about why I've not thrown any pellets, because you can see there, those pellets, I completely, there you go, it's come off, I completely snuck in, but even though that happened, that fish still decided to come off the bottom. So let's try that one. That wasn't very good, was it? Super, super important. I keep saying it, but read how you're feeding them. I do not want those fish coming off the bottom with this style of fishing. I may even need to go to feeding every other cast, you know, if I'm getting occurrences like that, I need to slow my feeding down. So I'm going to sneak those in. You're going to get an extra view of what we're saying here. So I'm not going to go past it this time because you already experienced what I'm talking about, but I'm going to hold my rig just out of the water. You can see it all swinging in nice and tight. One even tried to grab it on the way down there. And then we should be sitting almost perfect here. Let's have a look. Slightly still down the slope, so we inch it back a tiny bit more. Hold it, drop it, and we are fishing. It's all super tight. Bam, there you go. You see your bites, lovely. That is exactly how you want it to work. A little one this time. I think that's why a few little missed bites, because these little ones are really tricky, but they are still, terrible bit of netting. They are still good for getting bites and keeping your fish ticking over. So that is a very important section there. We've talked about how you're feeding it. Once you understand that, you've got to think about how you're laying your rigging. And then the last thing that we're going to cover is the baits itself. So I know we're fishing with pellets. Here comes a train. We've got them all coming to cause us some trouble today. I know we're fishing with pellets, but there's definitely something that you can do to make them slightly better. So I can't resist catching a few more fish. Once I've done that, we'll talk you through the baits. There we go, another fish coming towards the net, and I'll be honest, I missed a few bites, so you may have to play around with the feeding shortly just to try and see if we can tighten up a little bit. But while I'm playing this fish in, it's a good time to mention, if you want to have a go at hard pellet fishing, I really suggest you should, and you want to know the tackle that I've used and the bait that I'm going to talk you through now, then I'll put it all in the description. I'll do a blog all in one place for you, nice and simple, and you can have a go at hard pellet fishing yourself. It's mega consistent now, but the last thing I want to talk you through is bait. The sun came out a little while ago, it's now threatening to rain, so before we get completely soaked, let's have a look at the bait. Now we've already said it's all about hard pellets. I think it's the most consistent bait. If I was taking it to a venue that I've never been before, then I would take this with me, and it just works everywhere. Everything eats pellets. So you can use them straight out of the bag, 4 mils or 6 mils. If it was an F1 based venue, I'd probably go with 4s. Trying to target a few more carp, then 6s are very good. I've got both with me today, but I've actually only used these 6mm. So you can use them like that, but there's definitely something you can do to make them better. Now, I'm not sure I should give this away, but I just like seeing people catch fish. So I put oil on my pellets for 2 reasons, not actually for the flavour, although having said that, I'm going to contradict myself, because recently in the last few months I've used the Dynamite Tiger Nut oil and they love it. I think I've won the last 4 or 5 matches that I've fished. I don't actually think I've lost one since switching to this. Now, that might not be the oil, let's be realistic. I've probably drawn well, I've got a bit lucky, you hit a bit of a purple patch, but I'll keep you posted if the success continues with this oil, because since I've used it, it is absolutely mega. All I do is I've got like half a bag of each, empty them into a bait tub, give them a good glug of the oil as soon as you start, or as soon as you set up, and then give them a swirl round, leave that oil to soak into the pellets. Then what you get is your pellets looking like this. Now, I've already said the flavour isn't the reason why I used it. The 2 reasons why I use oil, firstly, is it creates a consistent sink rate. If you've ever used pellets, I'm sure everybody has. You know when you throw a few in, a couple just hang in the surface tension in the water? Well, if you put a slight coating of oil on, and it stops that and they sink nicely, get to the bottom exactly where I want them to be. And then these are the 4mm, and the second reason why I put oil on is because it slows down the break time of the pellets. The breakdown time is slowed down. So what I don't want is the pellets breaking down, all those little bits just leaking off when they're sitting on the bottom. It creates a really weird feeding atmosphere, and you definitely get more foul hookers. So these slowing the breakdown time with the oil definitely makes a difference, and actually the flavour is the bonus. That's the thing. So you get 3 things out of it, but the 2 are the main. If I just show you these 6mm straight out of a bag, you look at the colour difference where these have been soaking in the oil for a few hours. The colour difference is mental. So these ones that are in oil gone darker, they're denser, they sink much better compared to the ones in the bag. So you can do either way. Let's give some fish a free meal down the edge there, but for me it's all about popping a little bit of oil on there. If you've got your favourite, use it. If not, give that one a go and let me know if it is as successful as it has been for me. I really wish I had used it all year. could have qualified for one of the big matches maybe, but we'll try it next year. So let's repeat that same process, sort of 15 pellets in the tub, and we're going to go out there. Now, because this venue has got so many fish in, just recently started to miss a couple of bites, which I think are the fish coming up in the water, just sort of trying to get those pellets before they hit the bottom. And there's 2 things that you can do if you get in that situation. So we were just repeating the same process. We're swinging a rig out. We've learned there's absolutely no rush to get your rig in the water, because you want it to be sitting perfectly on that shelf. And the 2 things you can do is you can slow down your feeding, which I probably will do. I probably won't feed next cast, because that sort of forces those fish to look for the bait that's on the bottom rather than coming higher in the water layers. There we go, there's one. And the second way that you can combat fish that are trying to come up in the water when you don't want them to, is to get your cup and kit and feed a positive bit of bait, you know, sort of a 1/4 of a cup, 1/3 of a big cup, and that big heavy clump of bait pushes those fish down, and again you sort of chase them back to the bottom. So there are 2 ways in. If you are getting your peg finding a little bit messy, then that should sort it out. Like I said, it shouldn't get too messy because the oil's stopping that breakdown, and you're not feeding it in a way for them to come shallow. That's a nice fish. That one worked well, but the next time I'm going to try and catch one more for you, and I'm not going to feed, just to see what that does. Wait, calm down, calm down. Now, you obviously wouldn't not feed for long. You know, you might have 1 or 2 fish doing it, and then you need to start feeding again. But just that little reset, that little 5-minute spell without any pellets going in, can make a really big difference. So I'm just going to go out this time. I'm going to try and catch one more to finish with you. It's been absolutely mega today, but to be honest, it normally is. It's just such a consistent, I'm going to use that word again, such a consistent way of catching fish. So no feed this time. I've actually only today fished at top kit +2, so I'm not very far out, but you can fish this literally wherever you want. I just find that as a short line is really good. It's out of the way of anything else. I can prime some other lines while I'm fishing a match, And this one doesn't take a lot of looking after because it's so instant. You can just keep dropping back over your spot and you can catch a little flurry of fish most of the time. So that's sitting, oh, there we go. That's sitting on that shelf. That doesn't get much better than that. And like I said, just that there, no feed that time, does encourage those fish just to get back down onto the bottom. So every now and again, 2 or 3 casts without any feed, and you can just get your peg to absolutely stay as good as it can be. There we go. What about that? It doesn't get much better. The sun is poking out, but just over there is some horrible looking clouds. So for me, that fish is going to be the ending. I hope that you found that useful. The information that I've given you is easy to understand. If there's not, don't forget, drop me a comment and I will answer them. Try and make it a little bit clearer if I've brushed over anything, but super consistent, super effective, and get out there and give hard pellets a go. So I hope you've enjoyed it. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and we'll be back very shortly with another Match Masterclass.